I recently finished building this kit guitar and had a lot of fun during my time building it. The whole process was extremely rewarding. But if I'm being honest, I'm not sure how I feel about the pickups. The tone is kind of dull and lifeless. But it plays great with super smooth feel and ultra low action. It's really comfortable to play, except it did take over 14 hours to complete with all the hard work I put into it. And a lot of that time was put into addressing the playability. But overall, I gotta say, I'm really happy with how the whole project turned out. However, some of the hardware is unacceptably cheap and in desperate need of upgrade. You know, I'm starting to wonder if I should have taken the money that I spent on that kit and saved all the blood, sweat, and tears and just bought a new factory-built guitar in the first place. Yeah, kind of like that. Hey everybody, this is Miller's Custom Guitars, and today we are going to wrap up our 3-part mini-series where we have been taking a deep dive into the topic of guitar kit building. In our first video, we talked about many of the reasons why you may be considering building a guitar kit, and which of those reasons are the right reasons to build a kit. I also talked about some pointers to help you shop for and find the right kit for you. In the second video, we followed my journey in making this guitar, from cutting the tape on the box to plugging it in for the first time. I chronicled my every step along the way, showing you how I dyed the body to achieve my desired color, how I treated the fretboard for optimum playability, how I shaped and then dyed the headstock, including adding my own decal with my own company name on it for a little extra flair, then sanded and oiled the back of the neck for a super smooth feel. Then assembled the whole thing and gave it a full Miller's Custom Guitars setup so it would play great. Lastly, I plugged it in for the first time right here on camera. If you haven't watched those videos, I highly recommend them because there's a ton of great information about kit building included in those videos. I'll link to those in the show notes if you want to watch those after this video. I really enjoyed the building process for this kit. It was extremely rewarding. It reminded me how much I love building guitars in the first place. It had been a long time since I'd been out in the shop, and I really needed the reminder. And the result was a guitar that means a lot to me. But let's be honest here, this guitar doesn't hold its own against my other guitars, at least in its current form. I mean, sure, it looks cool and it plays really well, but there are a number of things that immediately jump out when compared to my factory-made guitars. The most glaring shortcoming is the finish. Don't get me wrong, the finish on this guitar is exactly what I was shooting for, and I love it, but when compared side by side with my factory guitars, it just gets outshined big time. But perhaps the biggest playability shortcoming is the hardware. The tuners on this guitar kit are borderline unusable. They're difficult to turn, and sometimes they even jump and skip around while tuning. They're just awful. And then there's the Tremolo system on this guitar, which is very cheaply made. The trem block is extremely small. The action is stiff, and the tremolo bar is either super loose in the hole or positioned incorrectly, which basically makes it non-usable in my book. The last problem area is that of the pickups and the electronics. This guitar has cheap ceramic pickups, which, in my opinion, sound very forgettable and unexciting. In some positions, it almost sounds like there's like a blanket over my amp. I don't want to overlook the electronics either, which can make a big difference to your tone. The ones that came pre-wired with the kit are very poor quality. They're tiny nickel-sized pots and a plastic PCB-mounted 5-way toggle, and not to mention a really cheap, flimsy output jack. Look, these electronics are not made to last, and they're robbing my tone rather than contributing to it. And all of this was the result of 3 weeks worth of work and many hours of hard work and dedication. Looking at the result of this kit build, I can't help but be a little disappointed, especially when you consider that it cost me a not insignificant chunk of dough. So look, I want to have a frank discussion about the actual costs of building guitar kits here. I always hate it when people on YouTube don't talk about specifics about costs for whatever reason. So I'm going to try to be as transparent as I can be on this video. None of my links below are sponsored, and this video is not sponsored, and I don't even have affiliate links. The prices that I mention are what I paid when I paid them. They may have changed by the time you watch this, whatever time in the future. So I advise you to watch with discretion, but here goes. I bought this guitar kit during a Black Friday sale last November in 2021 from thefretwire.com. With the discount, it was $159 even. I spent $7.25 on RIT dye from Joann's Fabric. The finish that I use is called Rubio Monocoat. It's pretty expensive, $52 from Amazon for 350 milliliters, and I used 20 milliliters total, counting my test pieces, and that totals to about $3 that I use for all of my efforts. I paid $60 for a full sheet of decals, and dividing by the number of decals that I received, that means that one decal cost me about $2.50. Then there's the cost of all of my consumables. Sandpaper, boiled linseed oil, grain filler, the black dye that I used, paper towels, lacquer, so on and so forth. None of those things are all that much on their own, but they're definitely not free, and if you didn't have them, you'd have to maybe go and buy some of them potentially, and I did. I'm guessing that all in all, I have between, $5 and $10 in material consumable costs. Let's just call it, $10. Lastly, there's the cost of string. They included strings. I didn't use them. I use Ernie Ball 10s, which I buy in a 3-pack from Amazon for $14. So a single set is $4.66. This puts my total out-of-pocket expense for this kit at, let's round down and call it $185 for clarity. That's not even counting any of the tools that I use to help me build this kit, like my random orbit sander or my HVLP sprayer or my nut slotting files, all of which were essential in helping me achieve the results that I did. But for the sake of this video, we're going to ignore the tools and stick to the cost of the materials and consider the actual cost of this guitar to be $185. But look, we can't ignore the value of my time. This guitar kit took a lot of time to build. That was time that I could have been doing other things, like working on other guitars, or playing guitar, or spending time with my family.
Ow.
No loving each other. Or, I don't know, I could have been filing my taxes? In business, they call this opportunity cost. It consumed almost all of my free time that I had on weekends and evenings for about 3 weeks. All told, this kit required over 14 hours of labor to build. Keep in mind, a big part of why it took so long was due to the things that I was attempting to accomplish with the finishing process. And you could probably do it more quickly if you weren't being so particular. But there are other ways that you could finish the guitar that would take even longer, especially if you were trying to get a factory style finish. And it wasn't just the finishing that I invested time into either. I spent a significant amount of time working on the fingerboard, the frets, the nut, and the setup to make it play great. Look, I'm not trying to make excuses. What happened, happened. 14 hours is how long it took me to complete start to finish. For many people, the process of building their kit is a huge part of the benefit of what they're getting when they buy a kit. It can be extremely rewarding to spend all of that time working on the project, and it's so exciting to feel the anticipation grow as you get nearer and nearer to completion. This is definitely the case for me, and I thoroughly enjoyed the process. When you finally play this thing that you built, the results of your labor, and there's this thing that goes off in your head. You look at it and you're like, yeah, I did that. But there's another type of person out there. One whose viewpoint is also extremely valid. One who looks at the end product of that guitar and the time spent working on it and wonders, should I have just saved the time and spent that money on a factory guitar? And hey, everyone always says time is money, right? And I am a semi-professional guitar tech in my area. My time is valuable. At least it is to me. So let's do some math and take a look at my actual opportunity cost. If you consider my hourly shop rate of $30 an hour and apply that to the time I spent building this guitar, the value of my time would have been $420. Well, let's add that to the $185 cost of this build, and that brings the total opportunity cost for this guitar to just over $600. $600, people! Do you know what kind of guitar you can get for that much money? You can get an Epiphone ES335 for $599. Similar to this one, but in like a standard color. Unlike this is like a fancy color. Or you can get a Gretsch Electromatic Jet like this, except for the one without the Bixby, for $599. This is an awesome guitar. Or if you wanted a really great Strat style guitar, you can get a G&L Tribute Legacy for $549. Is there any chance that this guitar compares to one of those guitars? Not even close. Those are all killer factory guitars that are going to blow away this guitar in looks, tone, hardware, and probably even playability. But come on, that's not really a fair comparison, right? $600 against a $150 guitar kit. Well, I live in California. We should all agree that my time should be worth at least minimum wage, right? What's that these days? Let me check. Let's see here. California, minimum wage, $14 an hour? That's back in my... Okay, $14 an hour. Okay, so if I calculated my total time worked on this guitar at $14 an hour, minimum wage in California, well, that adds $196 to the total cost of this guitar instead, and brings the total to just over $380. At that price, it goes neck and neck with a Squier Affinity Stratocaster, or a Gretsch Streamliner Junior Jet, or an Ibanez Azez. Those are all really great guitars that would destroy my kit guitar if they went toe-to-toe.
But look, a kit guitar is for fun.
You may say.
You can't put a price on experience.
Well, sure. You're right, of course. However, we can't completely write off the time that it cost me. So look, according to the internet, Alabama has the lowest minimum wage in the country at $7.25 an hour. So roll Tide, I guess? Let's say my work should at least be worth the lowest minimum wage in the country. Let's take Bama's minimum wage and multiply it by the time I spent working on this guitar. That gets us to $101.50 for my labor. Add that to the $185 for my guitar, and that brings the costs down to around $285. That's my minimum opportunity cost for this guitar. I'm not going to say it's worth any less than that to me. So what kind of guitar can you get instead for $285? Here's the deal. It's not like how it was when I was growing up. Back then, the cheap guitars were kind of garbage. It used to be that if a guitar was made overseas, it was best to just steer clear. Today, the guitars coming out of China, Japan, and especially Korea can be of extremely high quality, and some are going toe-to-toe in quality and tone with the big boys. And some brands are even starting to charge more premium prices for their quality too. Don't get me wrong, the really cheap guitars are still out there, but if you are buying a new guitar, your dollar stretches further than it ever has in the past. And if you are in the market for a new guitar and you are writing off all import guitars just because they're imported, not only are you being a guitar racist, but you're robbing yourself of the opportunity to play some truly excellent instruments. I wanted to do an apples to apples comparison, so I was shopping for a guitar that was similar in style. So I was looking for an S-style guitar. If you're looking for an S-style guitar and you're on a budget, but you still want a lot of features, maybe you should look at an EART Classic S. As far as I can tell, EART guitars are only sold through Amazon, at least here in the US. The internet reviews of EART guitars are overwhelmingly positive, which is why I bought one, and the Classic S falls right in my budget, even accounting for tax. So how much guitar can you get for $285 these days? Well, let's take a look. The EART Classic S comes in 3 colors. Virginia, which is kind of like a burst color, blue, and fortunately, red. I definitely wanted to end up with a red guitar, so that's what I went with. The EART boasts a number of features that are commonly found on much more expensive guitars. The showstopper of them all are the stainless steel frets. Yeah, you heard me. Stainless steel frets are super popular lately and are primarily being offered on really high-end guitars like Suhr's and Tom Anderson's. However, somehow EART was able to find an affordable way to include stainless frets on their guitars. And I gotta say, they look and feel amazing. But they don't just slap stainless frets on the guitar. They expertly round and polish the fret ends. Seriously, this guitar has better fretwork than what came with my Gretsch or my Epiphone ES335, which were both in the $600 price range, and much better fretwork than what came with my Fender Player Plus Strat, which sells for over $1,000. Stainless steel frets are the thing that really separates it from other guitars, even double or triple its price range. But there are a bunch of other really great features that also make a huge difference. For starters, the neck is made of roasted maple. Heat treating wood is a process that's been around for centuries, but it seems like the guitar builders of the world only found out about it like, 15 seconds ago. I feel like even a few years ago, I'd never even heard of guitars with heat-treated wood, and now most manufacturers offer guitars that have necks and sometimes even bodies with roasted maple or other kinds of roasted woods. Well, why is roasted wood better? Well, let me tell you, heat treating the wood removes excess moisture in the wood and effectively crystallizes the natural sugars that are present in the wood itself, also caramelizing them in the process. The result is a piece of wood that is extremely stable, less prone to seasonal changes, and a little extra beautiful since the roasting process gives the wood a burnt tan color and the color goes all the way through. But they didn't stop at stainless frets and a roasted maple on the neck either. The fretboard is rosewood. Rosewood is a classic tone wood that is also my favorite for fingerboards. On the EART, the fingerboard is actually finished instead of left with raw wood. But this is not unheard of. Rickenbacker, for example, has been lacquering their fingerboards for decades. The fingerboard also sports a compound radius from 7¼ inches down by the nut to 9½ inches at the heel. A compound radius means that cording is still nice and comfortable, but as you go up the neck, it slightly flattens out, which makes it easier for soloing without fretting out. The fingerboard isn't the only thing that's got a compound profile. I've never even heard of this, but the back of the neck also has a compound profile. It has a U shape at the nut, and it changes to a C shape as you move up the neck. But wait, there's more. They also include a real bone nut. The nut isn't the most precisely cut nut that I've ever seen, but the fact that it's bone, it goes a long way. Look, it's obviously that the bulk of the budget for the EART went into the neck, and that's fine with me. But what about the rest of the guitar? Well, the tuners are high quality 18:1 ratio tuners. Look, it wouldn't be hard to beat the tuners on the kit guitar, but the EART tuners are a significant improvement. They look and feel really good with a super smooth movement. The tremolo is a really high quality 6-screw tremolo that features a full-sized block. The saddles look and feel great, and the tremolo feels a pop-in bar that stays where you put it. Additionally, the body features a contoured neck heel and has an additional scoop, which improves reach and playability. Also, I'm not sure if it will come across on camera, but this body has a mahogany body with a satin finish. It feels really cool. The last is the electronics. The EART has ceramic 8 pickups, which are advertised to have a 5.3K resistance. These pickups should have more personality than the ones that came with the kit. Also, while the switch is a PCB mounted switch, which I'm not really fond of, the pots are full-size pots, and I don't know, the wiring looks good. The bottom line is that the EART comes to the playground ready to brawl. EART has a full line of instruments available, and I've heard great things about all of them. But like I mentioned, I'm not sponsored. I don't even have affiliate links. I don't know. I think this is a cool guitar. Look, all of those specs are nice and all, but the things that matter to me on a guitar are how it plays, how it feels, and how it sounds. I'm going to go head to head against not only my kit guitar, but also my Fender Player Plus Stratocaster. Just like in my build video, I'm going to play through my pedal board into my full wet-dry rig, and then into both my amps for my best chance for each of my guitars to sound great. I'm going to play the same riff in each pickup position on each guitar with the same pedal settings so you can compare them. And at the end, I'll give you my final thoughts on this guitar. So what are my final thoughts on this guitar? Is this guitar worth $285? And my response would be unequivocally yes. In fact, I can't believe that they are able to make such a feature-packed guitar for only $285. It kind of blows my mind. The stainless steel frets, the roasted maple, the tremolo with the pop-in bar. Man, this guitar has tricked out specs, and it shows the attention to detail in every aspect, and it's definitely worth it. Would I recommend this? If you're looking for a Strat style guitar, this is definitely a great buy at this price range. I don't see how you could get a better one, but I haven't tried all the other ones. There's a lot of great guitars out there. I would say, though, that it's not all berries and cream, so to say.
Berries and cream, berries and cream.
The nut is not very well cut. It's nice that they include a bone nut, but the nut slots are kind of wide, and the strings kind of slide around in there a little bit. I noticed when I was messing with the strings that the string retainers, the screws aren't tightened down all the way, so the string retainers kind of just spin around. That's a little nitpicky, but that is the case. I noticed when I had the pick guard off, that there was a grounding screw that was screwed to the body, except for there was no shielding on the inside. There was no shielding paint or shielding tape. So that grounding screw wasn't doing anything except for being a wire that was screwed to the body. So I thought that was an interesting choice that they made. I was very surprised to find that this guitar came with a satin finish to the body. It looks cool and it feels cool, but it was not what I was expecting. And it's not my favorite. That's kind of an interesting choice that they made. And then the last thing is, it's one of the things that they describe as a feature, which is the compound neck profile going from a U shape to a C shape. And I just gotta say, I'm not really a fan. The neck, as much as the features of the neck are great, the neck to me is not really that comfortable to play for me, for my playing style. It may be different for you. For me, for my playing style, the neck on my kit guitar is much more comfortable. The neck is thicker, but the neck is thicker on the kit guitar. It fills my hand better, and it's much more comfortable. And despite the stainless steel frets and the compound radius on the fretboard, I actually found this guitar, the kit guitar, to be slightly better. Playing notes on this guitar choked out a little bit when I got really high up on the fretboard. Now that could be that I didn't give this guitar a setup when it came in. I just plugged it in and started going and did the comparison. It could be the case that if I did a proper setup, I could adjust that out, but that's how it came. But in the end, yeah, the EART has definitely destroyed the kit guitar in a head-to-head matchup for the price and for the value, for the amount of time and money that I put into this build. If you put that into this guitar, this is a far superior instrument in tone, in construction, in materials. Yeah, it's a much better instrument. And you know what? That hurts in here, because I put so much of myself into this guitar, and it means a lot to me. After all that, to have this guitar to be my third best Stratocaster. And you know what? I'm not sure if I'm okay with that. So maybe you'll have to stay tuned to see if we do anything about that. Well, that's all for this episode, guys. Thank you so much for watching this video. I really hope that you've enjoyed it and enjoyed this series, and I hope you've learned something. If you have learned something, or if you have any questions, please say so down in the comments. I always read every comment and I respond to them as much as possible. Also, please, if possible, you can leave a like and a subscribe. That always helps me out, helps the channel to grow. And until next time, guys, don't be a jerk. Because just don't. All right, guys. Until next time.